Welcome to episode 42. Yeah, so this is on live stream, which is a little bit of a shock for me because I'm watching myself with about a 15-second delay. But yeah, the Golf Rules Questions podcast, episode 42, is back. Now, it's just me flying solo today. Rossco's taken a hiatus. There's an E, there's an either, and another one. He's taken a hiatus, so it's just me running the show. Probably means it will be a little bit quicker. That's no on Rossco, but I don't have the gift of the gab like him. Now, I think we've only done a few. I had the break, the 6-week break where I had annual leave from my Golf Australia job. So we didn't do any podcasting during that time. Then we came back, or I came back to work, did a couple of episodes, and then we had a bit of a situation with said employer. And I am no longer an employee of Golf Australia. So don't need to beat around the bush with that one. But I am back doing the podcast, still increasing my knowledge of the rules of golf, as I'm hoping that I'm helping you to increase your knowledge of the rules of golf as well. Especially during, depends where you are in the world, but Australia, we are back in lockdown, most of us. So there's not too much golf getting played. So good chance to increase your knowledge of the rules of golf. Now, you can actually go on this is live streaming on YouTube. If it's successful, I'll keep doing it. But there is a live chat function. It's probably going to be a little bit delayed as well, but there's a live chat function on YouTube. So what I'll do, because this was the first time I'm doing this, and there's going to be many chances for me to correct all the mistakes that I've made. But what I will do is tell people when I'm going to do a live stream, and then you can be available and ready to answer the questions. And that will be a little bit easier for you than, hey, look, Blakey's live streaming. So I do have a agenda that I'm going to go through. Popped out a fair few rules videos in the last 2 months, even though we weren't firing with the podcast. So we've got a few to catch up with. Now, we also, importantly, have the Golf Rules question of the week 41 that I have not answered for you yet. So just reiterating on what that was. If it is not physically possible to drop the ball in any part of the identified relief area, the player is not allowed relief from the condition. Is this true or false? And the answer is true. So obviously, if you get free relief, if you're entitled to free relief, then you can try and work out your relief area. But if you don't actually have a relief area, then you can't take free relief. That one's pretty simple, I would have thought, even though it makes it, when you say it out loud, like in that question, you're thinking, no, but he gets free relief, or gets free relief. You got to give them free relief. Well, that's not quite true. If there is nowhere to drop, there's nowhere to drop. So this was an interpretation of a definition. So the definition, nearest point of complete relief. Interpretation number 5, player physically unable to determine nearest point of relief, complete relief. That was an addition in 2019. If a player is physically unable to determine his or her nearest point of complete relief, it must be estimated, and the relief area is then based on the estimated point. For example, in taking relief under Rule 16.1, a player is physically unable to determine the nearest point of complete relief because that point is within the trunk of a tree or a boundary fence prevents the player from adopting the required stance. The player must estimate the nearest point of complete relief and drop a ball in the identified relief area. And this is now where the question comes in. If it is not physically possible to drop the ball in the identified relief area, the player is not allowed relief under 16.1. So the answer to episode 41, GRQOTW, was true. It's true. You're not always allowed free relief. Right, so what has been happening in the rules world since we left? Lots. Now, this was, as I said, about 6 weeks ago. Oh, there you go. Rossco's just given me a call. He must be wanting to get back on. What has been happening in the rules? Bubba Watson makes birdie after breaking his driver. So Bubba hits his driver off the tee and it breaks. The head actually flies about 50 metres. Now, whilst Rule 4.1 wouldn't permit Bubba to replace his club, local Rule D7 had been adopted, so he was able to replace his club. Now, D7 was pretty much brought in straight away after the rules were released because the tours had a lot of players tell the tours that they thought the rule was stupid. So they brought in local Rule D7 to mitigate and take it back to what it was. And I'd say or suggest that D7 would most likely be an adjustment of the rules, but in 2023 to back to what it was. But I don't know. I have no idea. I don't have a crystal ball. But what we're saying is D7 is pretty much the old rule, which was you can replace your club if it's damaged in the normal course of play, which is what Bubba did a couple of holes later when the tour truck bought him out a new driver. He could have tried to repair it if he wanted to under Rule 4.1 or played with it as it was, which was in two pieces, a shaft and a head. A little bit hard, but you could try and you couldn't use the shaft because you've got to strike at the ball with the club head. But you could try and use the club head, but it'd have to be a swing, freely swinging the club head, and not a scrape, push, or scoop. No, there's no chance you're scooping that with a driver. Right, so that was the Bubba Watson, and you can go and check that out on my YouTube. Mackenzie Hughes, or Mackenzie makes Hughes score on 11. I always love to put a pun in the title. I've had a few people say that my puns suck, but I've had that for the last 20 years, so I'm not too fussed about that. Mackenzie hit his ball on a par 3 up a tree during the last round of the US Open. It actually hit the tree, bounced down, or fell down, and then bounced back up and got stuck on the bounce. Yeah. And so then they actually were able to identify that it was his ball, and the spot directly below where the ball came to rest, where its final resting place, the spot directly below was the reference point, and then within 2 club lengths, he dropped within 2 club lengths of that. But what made it difficult was once he dropped and then he re-dropped and then he placed on the path, he then got free relief from the path. So go and check that one out in my videos there. And then I think he only made like a double or triple, which I guess is a huge score, but it was just the fact that his last name was Hughes. That was my pun. Louis Oosthuizen gains free relief at the US Open. Louis had interference with a cart path during the US Open. It was from his area of intended swing. Now, this was a good one, interesting one. Definitely go and check this out. Whilst many would say as a professional he shouldn't be anywhere near the cart path, hit the ball first, etc., there was reason to believe the grass had encroached over the path a little bit, and thus the path was nearer to the ball than the coverage showed. So if you go and check out the video, his ball is like this far from the cart path, or maybe that far from the cart path. So, you know, he shouldn't actually have interference with it if he's one of the best players in the world. But then they would believe that the path was underneath and the grass had encroached a little bit. So that brings the path closer to the ball. And, you know, in that situation, you just don't want to, you know, damage your hands, I guess is how we'd say it. Put any kind of risk that you're going to hurt your wrist. And in those situations, because there was so close to there, giving him free relief for a situation like that, to me, seems fair or seems okay. Like, I wouldn't worry about that. You know, it really hasn't changed the shot that he had. You know, it wasn't like he got a better angle at the flag or anything like that. He might have, small, but, you know, not able to get him away from around a tree or anything like that. It was basically the same. So, yeah, no issue there. Even though it looked like he didn't have interference, he slightly did. Mike Modano's albatross was actually, his albatross, this was at a charity celebrity event. A celebrity event in Tahoe, been there, great place. Shout out to Marcella, who invited me to her house. And they play this every year. And Mike is a ice hockey player, and his wife was caddying for him, who is a professional golfer in her own right. Unfortunately, Alison didn't know the rules, stood behind Mike. Doesn't matter whether she said anything about lining him up or anything. She was there deliberately looking at the line or looking for something. It doesn't actually say in the rules. It says, the rules say, for whatever reason, you know, whatever reason, it doesn't matter. You're not supposed to be, or you're not permitted to be standing in that spot on an extension of the line of play behind the ball when the player has taken their stance or has taken their stance or for the shot. So to not incur that penalty, Mike just had to stand away, reset. Alison had to move away, and Mike could come back in, take his stance, make the shot. But should have incurred a general penalty. Not sure the committee were really enthused about whether they even knew that it happened, but weren't enthused. Although it did happen in round 1 or 2, so you could easily see that. And the footage, because he had an albatross, the footage went worldwide, so pretty easy to spot. Anyway, we'll leave that up to them, the committee. Didn't quite get that one. So it should have been a birdie, but it went down and probably will go down as an albatross. And there's some, it'll come around next year. Oh, Mike Modano's albatross last year. So I'm sure I'll bring it up and say it again next year. Right, so I told you it would be a lot quicker just by myself. Background bingos. Last time, Rossco's was Barn Boogle, and mine was Torrey Pines. I think that's because the US Open was on at that time, so I chose Torrey Pines. I haven't really got a background bingo. I mean, I have. If you can sort of see it, it's not those trees. I've got some trees here. Those are actually 3D, but the picture behind. You can actually see, I'm looking at the wrong spot. You can actually see if I just put my hand, these are things that I'll learn. Right there, the done, D-U-N, that stands for the Dunes. So just on the Mornington Peninsula, the Dunes golf course, very nice golf course, Tom Doak design. So that'll most likely be, since this is my new podcast studio, that will most likely be my background from now on. So yeah, probably no use playing background bingo with that one. Ivers, it was too long ago to have any Ivers. Now, I do have some live chat, which is something a little bit new to me. So I've basically sorted through what this episode was. Obviously, as I said, very quick. So let's answer some of this live chat. Now, you can see that, obviously, if you are joining in with YouTube or watching it, this will be posted later. You can watch it. So the first question from Joshua's Limitless Gaming: what are local rules? Great question, Joshua. Local rules are, because I did mention one before, local rule D7. So you've got the rules of golf, rules 1 to 24, and then local rules are for situations that need an adjustment of the rules of golf. Okay, so courses everywhere are so different, and so some courses suit the rules without any changes, whereas other ones need a slight change just because, or a slight addition is probably an easy way. You know, every course should have standard, what are the boundaries. That should definitely be number one on your local rules. And then local rules like, is E5 stroke and distance the alternative to stroke and distance? Is that adopted? Or, if you hit your ball out of bounds, you have to go back to your last or your previous place played. If the local rule E5, the alternative to stroke and distance, was adopted, then the player they have an extra option. They don't have to just go back to the previous place played. They can work out where their ball went out of bounds, and then on an equidistant arc to the start of the fairway plus 2 club lengths, you can drop your ball anywhere within that area, no nearer the hole. So you could, you're 100 metres from the green, you've hit your ball out of bounds, you could actually drop your ball in the rough 120 metres, or drop your ball in the fairway 105 metres, just no nearer the hole within that relief area. So that's local rule. Preferred lies E3, that is a local rule. I'm just talking about the common ones. F5, local rule F5, that is for when there's an immovable obstruction close to the green. So an immovable obstruction close to the green, your ball, you're thinking about putting, it's on your line of play. So that's one. Your ball is within 2 club lengths of that immovable obstruction, that's 2. And then the immovable obstruction is within 2 club lengths of the green. So if that's true, then you would be permitted to get free relief. So hopefully, Joshua, that has answered your question about local rules. Now, I've put slow mode on for the questioning, so basically you can only ask a question every 5 minutes. But since I don't have too many viewers, I really should open up the floor. So there's a good learning or an error, a mistake that I've made, and I'll change that for next time. Now, I've got another one here from Justin Wright. Do you think tour players have a technique to drop the ball to encourage it to roll away, i.e. rolling off the fingers so that it can be placed? I have thought this on many occasions. Great question, Justin. I would hope not, but I do agree with you that I think there are some that do it. I am more in the game of trusting people, and would, unless it's so blatant, I would usually call it that was just normally how you drop. So unless it was blatant, like they've actually spun it, I've got a ball here, unless they've spun it, if they've sort of let it roll off the front of their fingers, I don't see that is being done deliberately to make sure that the ball rolls outside the relief area so they can then place it, but it could have. So I do think that some of them have that in them to attempt it, but yeah, I hope not. Yeah, Justin's replied, I'll take that as a yes. Yeah, it was the terrible diplomatic way of answering that question. Now, this is only short and sweet, but for the other 4 people that are watching, feel free to. Oh, Steve, what's the time in the UK? It must be about 9 a.m. something like that. You probably can't answer that, Steve, because you got to wait 5 minutes. I'll make sure I change that for next time. Steve, Rule 16 allows players to play the ball as it lies in the GUR. Yes. Can clubs make a local rule to say you must take relief from the GUR, or should they make these no play zones? You've basically answered your own question there, Steve, in that can clubs make a local rule to say you must take relief? That is by the club. To do that, they have to make them a no-play zone. Does that make sense? So, it used to be compulsory GUR. That was a few years ago. That'll probably confuse a few people. But if a club wants to make you not play the ball as it lies, they make it a abnormal course condition no-play zone. So there's only 2 types of no-play zones. One's an abnormal course condition, and one's a penalty area. Spot on, Steve. You just got to make a no-play zone. Now, in terms of GUR, I always say that there's 2 reasons that you would make something GUR, deem an area GUR. And the 2 reasons are, or the first reason is to protect the golf course, and the second one is to protect the player. I don't particularly like protecting the player. If it were up to me, it would be just players that lies pretty much everywhere. But I can certainly understand protecting the golf course, especially when it's wet, or even like a tree that possibly might fall over because it's looking a bit sick. That would be protecting the player, but it also protects the course as well. So. No play zones. I hope that answered your question, Steve. Now, James T. Didn't know there was a podcast at the moment, especially on Friday afternoon, which is perfect during lockdown. Question, how do you deal... Well, thank you, James. How do you deal with a playing partner that won't agree to the rule? I've got all the hard questions coming out today. So first of all, playing partner, not to be, what's the word? I'm going to stuff up my own correcting of someone else's terminology. How stupid is that? Fastidious? No, it's particular. If you say playing partner, that always means, under the rules of golf, always means someone in a 4-ball or foursome. So it basically means your partner, the person you are playing with to try and win the competition. I think in this question, James, please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sorry you have to wait 5 minutes. I'll fix that out next time. Fix that up next time. I believe... by your question, you mean someone else in your group. So we're playing stroke play, and you mean someone else that just doesn't agree with what you're saying. And an easy one would be, hey, your ball's on the green. Steve hits his putt from on the green, and it hits your ball. And you say, hey, Steve, sorry, but that's a 2-stroke penalty in stroke play. And Steve goes, nah, it's not. I don't believe you. Well, in that situation, if you're their marker, you bring it up with the committee before the scorecard is handed in. Bring it up with the committee. And then let the committee deal with it. They'll ask all the questions. And then they'll determine what the outcome is. In that situation, they're just going to tell Steve, hey, Steve, read 11.1. It's a penalty. So make sure you add that to your scorecard. And if Steve doesn't add it to the scorecard, you don't have to sign it. And, the committee know about it as well. So Steve's going to be disqualified for that. But, the principle around if your group member, another player is the technical term in stroke play, another player doesn't agree, best thing to do if you've got a bit of time, show them the rule. We don't all carry rule books out there, but you can get the rules of golf on your phone, smartphone, the app. You can't even see that. Wow, that's so bright. It's good because it takes the wrinkles away from my face. So show them the rule. If you don't know where the rule is and you're just going off what you've heard, I think Nigel said it, play 2 balls or get the guy or the person to play 2 balls. Make sure you bring it up. The easiest way to bring it up is actually by saying, hey, Steve, did you know that there's a penalty if you hit another ball on the green when when you made the stroke at your ball that was on the green? And Steve goes, nah. And you go, oh, and you sort of play along. You go, yeah, I'm pretty sure you're penalised, but we should check with the committee. And so Steve realises, goes, okay, yeah, let's check with the committee. But if you do know exactly where it is in the rule book, just say, hey, it's rule 11.1, penalty. And if they don't agree with that, take it up with the committee, and the committee can enforce the penalty there. Geez, we've got a few coming through now. Justin again. Can you take a second provisional? How's it scored? Also, I like the video format where you talk rather about the rule than text overlay. How do I fit 5 minutes of question into 200? Right. Can you take a second provisional? Yes. The second provisional relates to the previous ball. So Fraser hits one off the tee and he thinks it's gone out of bounds, so he hits a second provisional. Hits a provisional. Thinks that one's gone out of bounds, so he hits a second provisional. Now gets down there, finds a second provisional. It's in the fairway. First provisional he can't find, but he manages to find the original inbounds within the 3 minutes from the time of starting the search. What is the ball in play? It's the original ball. So the provisional ball, the second provisional ball, could have been the ball in play if the provisional ball became the ball in play. You get that? So first of all, the provisional ball would have to become the ball in play for a chance. So there's a chance that the second provisional ball would become the ball in play. Now, the first provisional ball never became the ball in play because the original ball was found within the 3 minutes of starting the search. So the original ball is still the ball in play. Right. Done. Now, question of the week. No, it's not question of the week. It is... I'm just texting Rossco to tell him I'm live streaming on YouTube, but I reckon by the time he gets on, I'll be gone anyway. Right, so question of the week for episode 42. Are you permitted, so question of the week 42, are you permitted free relief from a dot of paint that is marking a yardage on the fairway? So your ball has come to rest on the paint. Are you permitted free relief from that dot of paint that is marking a yardage on the fairway? Rightio. That has been 30 minutes, so this could be one of the shortest podcast episodes for GolfRules questions. I'm still amazed that I got to 30 minutes, but I would absolutely love to thank everyone that tuned in and asked questions. So next time, because it's actually worked pretty well. Next time, number one, I'll let you ask a question every 1 minute, or every 30 seconds, and we'll see if I get too choked up or if it goes really well. The second thing will be tell everyone when I am going to be on. So I will schedule when I will be on, and then more people will understand when to tune in. So really hope you've enjoyed the live stream. That was episode 42. The recording will be on YouTube, and I will get this up onto Anchor for all those of you that have podcasts. Oh, last thing. I just dropped a new type of newsletter called the Drop Zone. Good pun there. So I'll be shooting that out once a week, and hopefully getting the podcast out once a week. So you'll get two things from the GolfRules questions media business. Feel free to share with all your friends. Make sure you get them to subscribe on YouTube. But feel free to shoot the newsletter to as many people as you want. I'm just here to help educate, basically. And I'm a lover of golf as much as anyone else. So that's enough babbling on, or I'll become Rossco. Thank you very much for tuning in. Speak again soon.